Hi everyone, welcome to Variant Human Dungeons & Dragons. Today I'm going to talk about one of the more iconic parts of one of the most iconic classes in Dungeons & Dragons, the Wizard's Spellbook. This particular aspect of the character is a little bit confusing because it's in multiple sections in two different books. So to kind of understand what I'm talking about today, you're going to need the Player's Handbook, and you're going to need the Dungeon Master Guide. I will put the specific pages that you need on the screen because I can't remember 3 separate pages from my notes. As a clarification, some of the things I'm talking about will be from rules clarifications from Sage Advice with Jeremy Crawford. Jeremy Crawford is one of the developers of Dungeons & Dragons, and he is specifically in charge of the rules. So a lot of talking about rules related stuff, I'm gonna be referring to some clarifications that he's made. One of the first things that I want to talk about that's pretty important for wizards as far as spellbooks go is that if you go to the page for wizard, which I have bookmarked here, page 113, and if you flip it over to 114 on the top left, the equipment here for the wizard, it does list that the wizard comes with the spellbook. However, if you use the alternate rules for purchasing items where you roll for the amount of gold that you have and then you use that gold to buy items, you do need to purchase a spellbook or you are completely screwed as a wizard. So just keep that in mind. The spellbooks, I think, are 50 gold each. So as a starting character, that's a fairly significant amount of your starting gold. So do keep that in mind if you are using the alternate rules where you purchase items. Another thing that I would like to note is, despite the Player's Handbook stating that spellbooks have 100 pages in them, there is no actual rule for how many pages each spell that you put in a spellbook takes up. Previous editions of the game did clarify this, and it was important. However, I think that they skipped it in 5th edition because it was just another detail that didn't need to be added. If it is important, you can come up with it with your DM, or you can consult one of the older versions of the game that specifically covers that. So because of that, a wizard is essentially capable of putting any amount of spells that they want in their spellbook. However, that has the negative that a wizard that does that could lose all of their spells if something happens to their spellbook. So you don't want to do that. So there are 3 primary ways that a wizard will get new spells. One is by leveling up. The wizard will find new spells in their travels and will just add it to their spellbook. The other way is for a wizard to copy the spell from a spell scroll to their spellbook. And the third way would be to copy from a spellbook to a spellbook, which can occur if a wizard wants to make multiple copies of their spells, to have multiple spellbooks for some of the reasons that I said earlier, or if they meet another wizard and they decide to trade spells or something like that. So the second way that I named, and the primary way that a wizard is likely going to get new spells, is from spell scrolls. This specific rule is in the Dungeon Master's Guide on page 200 under spell scrolls. So it's a little confusing because it's spread out. Essentially, what it says is that in order for a wizard to copy a spell over from a spell scroll to their spellbook, one, it has to be a wizard spell. So good luck with a druid only spell or with a cleric only spell. That doesn't work. The second is that they have to make an Arcana check, which is equal to 10 plus the spell's level. So a wizard copying a level 2 spell into their spellbook would have to be an Arcana roll of 12, 10 plus 2. If the wizard is successful, the spell scroll is destroyed, and the spell is in the wizard's spellbook forever. If the roll is not successful, then the spell scroll is still destroyed, and unfortunately the wizard failed to copy down their spells. This process does take 50 gold and 2 hours per level of the spell of the wizard's time, which is halved if it is part of the wizard's specialist school. So if you are playing a wizard and you're copying your spells over, do confirm if it's a specialist school for you or not. You should be picking that at level 2. The other thing that a wizard may find themselves doing is copying a spell from one spellbook to another. This might be from another wizard spellbook, or it might be from their spellbook to another, just so that they have a backup copy of it. To do this, they obviously need 2 spellbooks, so they need the spellbook that they're copying from and the spellbook that they're going to be copying into. Those are 50 gold for blank spellbooks in the player's handbook. If the worst thing possible happens and the wizard loses their spellbook, for whatever reason, it gets destroyed, it gets dropped into a puddle of acid, whatever, the wizard is able to make a new spellbook. However, they're only able to do so with the spells they have memorized. The process for copying into a new spellbook from memory is the same process that I named earlier for spellbook to spellbook, so it's the same cost and the same amount of time. However, the wizard is only able to produce spells that they memorized. So if, for instance, the wizard has the first level spell Shield memorized for that day, but they don't have the first level spell Magic Missile memorized for that day, it is instead in their spellbook, they are not able to transcribe Magic Missile into the new spellbook. They would only be able to do so with the Shield spell, which they currently have memorized. So, as you could tell, that process would be terrible for the wizard. So, make sure to make multiple copies of your spellbook. You don't want that happening to you. So that's my quick little video on the rules regarding spellbooks in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I know there's been some confusion on that in my game, and I just kind of wanted to run over it a little bit because it's confusing that it's in multiple books, and it's very different from the previous editions of the game. So, as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to copy your spellbooks down so you aren't victim to a lost spellbook. And as always, have a great night.